Hello, Tom Lavecchia here with the latest edition of the New Theory podcast. We've been on fire. We had some really great guests. Yesterday, we did a podcast with Lee Burns. Do not talk to people or do not talk to somebody, or what is it? Don't talk to somebody without dying. Anyway, either way, great podcast, great author. We're doing a book giveaway there, so I'll link back to that podcast. But today we have an equally special guest, Jazznea Smith. And before we jumped on, there's so many ways and so many things that we can slice this conversation. Entrepreneur, has a jewelry line, started a nonprofit, a whole bunch of stuff. But before we get into all that, Jazznea Smith, welcome to New Theory Podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing very well. I feel so filled with love, and I'm excited to share it with you and your listeners today.
Now, hoping if you're watching, great. And if you're listening, watch the YouTube version because she just gives off great energy. I'm assuming the energy translates, the vibrations translates on the audio, but visually I could just tell she's giving off a great energy and a great vibe. So Jazznea, you have a lot going on, but you probably started somewhere like all of us. Give us kind of your formative years. Where did you grow up and kind of what makes you you?
Amazing. So I am originally from Louisiana.
Nice.
So I do have that Creole background, the very humble beginnings.
Yeah.
From there, we moved to Houston, Texas, where I reside at this time.
Oh, nice.
And Houston has molded me into who I am today. But the reason that I am, an intuitive speaker, reader, and crystal jewelry maker at this time is because of several spiritual awakenings that I experienced throughout my life.
Share with what you're willing to share, because I'm very interested to hear.
Sure. So a lot of people hear spiritual awakening and it kind of scares them, or it sounds like it's more grander than it really is. A spiritual awakening is just simply a period of time that you go through where a series of events seem to be happening. And one's perspective could be that these things are happening to me. But the real thing is whatever was not on a solid foundation is crumbling so that a new can be, developed for you to have growth. So in other words, growing pains. I went through an experience where I had acute pancreatitis, and I've always had abilities to just have strong knowings and hear God speak to me. But on this particular day, I was laying in a hospital bed, and God instructed me on what to do. I had a crystal, and I had never did this before. I didn't know anything about Reiki or anything like that. But God told me to place the crystal over my pancreas and to speak life into myself.
Hey.
I had a binaural beat going. I closed my two physical eyes and I allowed myself to just, visualize and really feel that I was, healed, because, acute pancreatitis cannot be healed. It's not something that they have a cure for. The body has to heal itself. So I've already gotten my gallbladder removed before. I didn't want to experience that. But the great news today is that God actually healed me from that experience through me using the crystal and believing that I could, experience that. So that was one experience. That was a spiritual awakening, right? I got better. And after I got better, the end of that month, that was the beginning of August, I was sick for about 2 months on a liquid diet. The end of August, after I got better, my father transitioned.
Okay.
And I felt him transition. So that opened up mediumship. I felt him transition, and he was communicating with me to assist me with my grieving process as well as my family. He came to us in animal symbolism. He came through music. One time we were sitting, it was like the first week he passed away. We were sitting around just, in shock, kind of numb, trying to process it. And my phone started playing a song that my dad loved. And it started dead in the middle of the song. And it was talking about taking a vacation because it was around, the time period that we were supposed to take a vacation at the end of the year as a family to Vegas.
Oh, wow.
So the lyrics basically said, still take that vacation, live your life, something like that. So that's just, so many experiences like that. After that, God instructed me to let go of a relationship that was not growing. A lot of times these spiritual awakenings happen to trigger you to move, because life is all about growth. We are constantly redeveloping, re-identifying ourselves. But if we don't really grow, if we stay stagnant, if we don't want to, make actions that are in a direction that's for our greatest good, then we find ourselves going through many crises all the time. So that's pretty much my story.
I'm a big believer in signs, and I do believe, and whether it's called a teachable moment, a spiritual awakening, and an advent of change. I mean, there's many different names for it, but it's essentially the same beast. So a big believer in it, right? So why do you think, and you're kind of touching on having, some medium abilities as well, which kind of is blended into that. And we'll get that in a minute, but why you?
You said, why me?
Yeah, why you? I mean, that because it doesn't happen to everybody. And also some people, this, you need to have the readiness to receive it. So why you and why then?
As long as I can remember, I always had this fire inside of me. I'm a Leo sun sign. However, in my heart chakra, before I even knew about a heart chakra, I would always feel a surge of energy there. And as a kid, if something that happened around me was unjust, I would always feel what others felt around me. And I didn't understand what I was going through. I didn't know that I was feeling other people's energy until I became an adult and, realized, okay, the patterns of, okay, I'm around this person, I'm allowing this person access to me, and I can feel their energy, what they're going through. The first time that I realized that this is because of me was because, again, I've always been an advocate for justice and what's right. In school, if someone was getting bullied, I hung with everybody. I knew and could sit at the table with everyone. So if I saw someone getting bullied, I didn't have to know them, but I would defend them. I just always knew that it was, a higher reason why a lot of things happen in life. And I always tell people, my spiritual team, that walk with me, I always felt their presence. So it's like, I didn't worry about if my parents would punish me, because 9 times out of 10, they wouldn't have found out. But I always felt like there was something around watching me. And I tell people a lot, if you get that feeling like something is around you, you're at home alone, but you hear, not even just hearing noises, but just really can feel like the presence of something in front of you, but you can't see anything. That's 9 times out of 10, the presence of, spirit, because we don't die. Our physical vessel, dies, we transform, but we are spirit at the end of the day. And when this vessel dies, we don't die, which is why as a medium, we can still connect with people that have transitioned because they're still around us.
Interesting. So I can attest that I lack a certain level of spirituality in my life, and for any listener who really kind of digs deep and looks within themselves, probably feels similarly. So where's the intersection, or is it together or separate? Spirituality and religion, are they the same, or are there something that cohabit separately?
I believe that you mentioned earlier, I operate from here. And what feels right. I tell people, follow what feels good. So my background is Baptist in a religious church. In church, again, I mentioned that I felt energy. So in church, I would feel everything. I would have severe panic attacks in church, and I didn't understand why. Every single time I went to church, because I would feel what everybody was going through, and I didn't at the time know how to protect my own energy. So the biggest thing for me is find what works for you. Whatever works for you and helps you connect. As long as you're connected directly to God, that's all that matters. You don't need a third party. Some people look at religion as, savior, but if you don't do your work, you're just trusting somebody else's perspective of what God is, the expression of God. Religions are just simply belief systems and one's perspective of how to worship God, in my opinion. Spirituality is a big umbrella.
Yeah.
Spirituality is a big umbrella. Same thing. It's just over here, you have these different spiritual belief practices that, They have their perspectives of how you're supposed to communicate with your spiritual team. They have these different belief systems of how you're supposed to, the structure in how you're supposed to just live your life. I left religion personally because I wanted to praise God however I felt in my spirit, and I didn't want to be conformed to it. So I looked at all the belief systems, and I've found a way to combine what resonates for me. I practice a little bit of everything. I practice what feels right and what feels good from a heart space.
Okay, so now the thing I like is I do have a lot of pitches, and I do speak to a lot of people on and off the podcast just by nature of being a publisher and a podcast host. And a lot of people are full of shit. Like they just are, right? But you're actually manifesting your energy into tangible things, right? So first, let's start off. You have a podcast, right? Yes. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
So my podcast was birthed through this process of the pandemic. I've always been an intuitive speaker. As long as I can remember, it always felt like I was stepping outside of myself and something was speaking, and then I would come back in observation of what was said. I never really knew a lot of times the profound things that came out. But what I will tell you is I was doing this with a friend. We were starting our first retreat, and she was like, Jazz, you should start recording this. We were going to do it together, but my schedule was a lot more open. And it's like, you know what? It was burning up. It was burning me up. Like when you are connected directly to God, God gives inspiration, ideas, ways to be prosperous, because God promises abundance in all that you need and desire, right? That's in alignment with your purpose, of course. So she was like, you should definitely start recording. I'm trying to record. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just do it. I had put it off for probably 2 years because I wanted to do it with other people. I thought it would be more fun. But the way I do it now is when I have channel messages, I just let it flow. I let the channel messages flow. But as of late, I've introduced special guests. And the name of my podcast is I'm Just Saying, because I'm always just saying as an intuitive speaker. So my guests that come, though, they're people from all walks of life, different parts of the world. And everybody has a different perspective and belief system, but we pretty much connect. And the center of it is to provide people with the resources to see that we're different. Let's actually focus on the things we can build off that. Yeah. Secondly, you will lead with tools. Okay. A lot of people sit and talk about things, especially what's been going on in the world with racism, with different belief systems, people, bashing religious people, bashing people that's spiritual bashing people that's religious, black against white, like all of the conflict. In my heart and my mind, what's kept me sane is my podcast and just reminding people that you must keep your vibration high regardless. At the end of the day, regardless of what you want to say, everything is on the scale. And you choose what experience in life you want to have. Imagine a middle ground in that scale. You can have good experiences if you allow yourself to stay up here from your heart, because love is the answer. Love heals everything. But if you keep yourself underneath that scale,
well, how can
keep
we
yourself in a low vibration?
I agree. And one of the again, the areas that impresses me with you're putting into action. You have your podcast. So you mentioned kind of energy and love winning all and that kind of stuff. And these are obviously great concepts, right? But our country needs some healing right now. And it seems like you have some insight on that, whether it be racial strife, economic, COVID, all three. Give us some tips and some thoughts on how to deal with these tough times.
So the biggest thing is what I've learned in my life. The way I've been able to manifest things is realizing that I have no control over anything external to me. The only control I have is of me. So if I want love, I have to be love. If I want someone to give me time and attention, I have to give that same time and attention to myself. When I walk out of my door and I interact with people, I am not going to lie to you and tell you I don't experience bad things sometimes, or quote unquote changing a perspective, a lower vibrational experience, but it's all in how I react to it. Someone else could be having in their personal, each person's body vessel is their own universe. That person could be having inner conflict, and that is on them. But that doesn't mean that when they come in my energetic space that I have to be affected by it. So if I could just give advice to people right now, fixes it, because then you're able to have an unconditional, because remember we talked about the spectrum earlier. Yeah. You will experience more high vibrational experiences in life when you have your high vibration up here. If you, now I get it. So we talk about it on podcast, but at the same time, that's why I focus on tools, because we can sit and talk about the same problems all day long, but what tools are we applying towards action to fix it? We get trapped in that cycle of anger and disappointment and hurt and pain because we keep reliving it, but we're not actually taking action towards resolving it and having the cure to it. People protest all the time. People, shoot each other. People do all of that to prove a point. That never fixed anything. Love is really the answer. You don't have to agree with a person, but you can love yourself unconditionally enough to not disrupt your own inner peace by causing chaos in somebody else's universe and then causing an explosion of energy. And that just trickles and it grows and grows and grows.
I agree.
My biggest thing is focus on you.
I agree. And I think a lot of the hatred and stuff comes from self-hatred. Hatred. People do not love themselves first. They do not love their family first, and they manifest that anger onto other people, and that perpetuates conflict. So I categorically agree with you on that. So and you cut out a little bit, but I got the gist of what you're saying, and I told you like the energy's there. So I'm already absorbing a lot of good stuff. You're starting a nonprofit, and you started a jewelry line around some healing crystals. Let's put a little plug in for that before we conclude, because I think that's important to bring up.
Wonderful. So crystals, after that life-changing experience with me being able to heal myself, I started using crystals in my everyday life. Know that power starts within, but God gives us tools. These crystals come from the earth, and these crystals, like anything, can amplify or decrease or absorb energy. Anything can really, but a crystal itself, like, I use them. So people kept complimenting me. I wanted a specific charm bracelet. This is actually one of them. And so I actually soldered silver, and I sourced the crystals this size, and I soldered them to make charm bracelets. I wanted that, couldn't find it anywhere. And then I also make these. I make the pendants where I solder them. And so I love raw crystals. And basically it was birthed through people asking me about it all the time. And I got tired of telling people no, And as far as the nonprofit, I'm a coach, I'm a mentor, I have a group on Facebook. I'll tell you all of my information on how to get in contact with me in a little bit, but yeah. All the adults I help, we always have to go back to childhood trauma. Yes. So it's like, a lot of the growth, that's needing to be made cannot be made because a lot of people that hurt, the root of that hurt was watching maybe mom or dad experience it. That's where we first learned it, or maybe somebody else who raised us. So at the end of the day, like, if we give the children the tools that we are getting now to heal ourselves of childhood trauma, then we will have a better community, because these kids will grow up knowing how to deal with their emotions, for one, instead of suppressing them. I had a profound experience with a client. I was doing a coaching session with her. Her son came in on her crying, and she turned him away. I said, no. I stopped it right then and there, and I said, no, tell him to come back. And she was a little uneasy about it, but she listened. I coached her through how to communicate with her son on how those emotions she was experiencing, why she was experiencing them, so that he'll know it's okay to have emotion, and this is how you process this emotion and release it. So the nonprofit will give those tools. We'll give yoga, we'll give meditation, we'll give crystal healing, aromatherapy, sound therapy, and we'll travel all over doing this. I want to target youth community centers in the urban communities. I want to travel all over the world doing this. I've already seen it, and so I'm dedicating my life towards doing this and making sure that the youth have the tools that they need as well as adults.
I love it. Jazznea, how can we find you?
You can find me on intuitivebeauty.com. My website is intuitivebeauty.com. spelled BEAUTE.com. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube is Intuitive Beauty. And one last thing I just wanted to share.
Please.
I'm going to have a panel podcast episode on Thanksgiving Day where we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about, new traditions and where to go from here as far as a collective on celebrating holidays and what's okay and how to just process what we've experienced collectively. And ending it with Mama Mai, me and her, I made custom jewelry for her, crystal jewelry, and all of the collection is on my website right now. All of the proceeds are going towards the funding of the nonprofit. So thank you so much. If you all want to support, I would gratefully appreciate it. You can go to intuitivebeauty.com. Thank you so much again.
I will. I just followed you. And I'll put links to the website. And I appreciate your time, and I love the energy. You cut out a little bit. There was some audio challenges. You hear that on the playback, but more importantly, the message is there. We'll put a link. People can find you. Good luck with your podcast. Good luck with your line. Good luck with your charitable endeavors. And thank you for being on the New Theory podcast.
Thank you so much. You have a great evening.
You too. God bless. Be well.